More than a dozen people have died in India in the past 2 months due to a severe heat wave. Experts blame high temperatures driven by climate change. Over the weekend, a temperature of 49.2 degrees Celsius was recorded in the capital, Delhi. Now, anyone who's been to India knows it gets hot, but 49.2 degrees is something else entirely. And India has been experiencing this since March, which has already been the hottest on record. Through most of March and April, the Indian subcontinent looked like this: severely hot temperatures everywhere. Heat waves aren't unusual in India, but so early in the year with such severity certainly is. And its impact is visible. Around Delhi, fires stoked by rising temperatures broke out in two of the largest landfill sites. DW correspondent Manira Chaudhary reports on what that meant for people working and living around them.
35-year-old Pawan Singh has been working as a rack picker for 5 years, collecting paper and cardboard from waste for his livelihood. Every day he spends 5 to 6 hours in this landfill. Summers, he says, are especially difficult for him.
A strong smelling gas rises from the waste. Then we just feel like wrapping up our work quickly and leaving. We just keep sipping on water to keep going.
This is Ghazipur landfill. At 56 meters, it is the tallest and the largest of the 3 dump yards in Delhi. Every day, these landfills receive a large amount of fresh waste, even as the authorities struggle to process the millions of tons of old accumulated waste. And when the temperature soars during summers, these landfills catch fire almost every year. The decomposition of waste at such landfills produces methane, a highly combustible gas which often leads to fire in hot weather conditions. This year, there have already been 3 fire breakouts in different sections of the Ghazipur landfill here, with a major one of them starting in the last week of March, which lasted for 3 days. The landfill fires, many scientists suggest, are a result of rising global temperatures. These fires in turn contribute to an increase in heat and air pollution. Those living in the vicinity of the landfills are especially affected. Even when not on fire, landfills cause severe environmental damage, as methane is a major source of global warming. According to researcher Dr. Richa Singh, proper waste management needs to be implemented to cut down on the toxic gases produced by these landfills. But when it comes to the fire outbreaks, she says global warming is not solely to blame.
It is contributing in fire, of course, but the primary reason, the cause of fire is the mismanagement of the waste. Because ideally, we should not put mixed waste in the dump site, because it will decompose, it will generate methane, and it will catch fire ultimately.
While the process to treat the accumulated waste is going on, it is not yet able to match the pace of dumping of fresh waste on a daily basis. And the situation will only worsen unless the authorities find a way to catch up. Until then, the vicious circle of high temperatures, poor waste management, and smoldering landfills will continue to make life miserable for many in Delhi.
And joining me now for more from Delhi is environmentalist Chandra Bhushan. He's also president and CEO of the International Forum for Environment, Sustainability and Technology, or iForest. Welcome, Mr. Bhushan. Let's just talk about the landfill fires around Delhi first. Would you say they have been driven primarily by climate change?
Well, they have been driven primarily by high temperature, and Delhi over the last 1 month has seen unusually hot season. And therefore, with the amount of biomass that is there in these landfills are presently the tallest structure in the city with massive amount of waste. And therefore, with high temperature, self-combustion is a reality. And therefore, high heat, high temperature has contributed to these fires. And of course, you can link it to climate change, because I don't think there is any doubt that the heat waves that we are experiencing in South Asia, especially in India and Pakistan, is primarily driven by global warming.
So what explains this unusual heat wave?
Well, as I said, there is no other explanation than the fact that we now have entered a new era of extreme heat driven by global warming. There are some of the characteristic is important to understand. First of all, the heat waves are now starting early in the month of March and April, whereas we had we have heat waves, but in May and June. So it is starting early. It is now much more prolonged. These are not heat waves for a few days. These heat waves are now lasting months. And third, they are now hitting areas which were not susceptible to heat waves. So Himalayas, for example, we are now seeing larger number of heat wave days in Himalayas.
Now, some 75% of India's energy needs are met through fossil fuels, including burning coal. I wonder, therefore, if India is contributing to its own heat waves.
Well, of course, India is contributing to its heat wave, but so is US and Germany. Germany still uses massive amount of fossil fuel and is contributing to climate change. So is the US, most developed countries, and across the world. So while India is, of course, contributing 6% of the global emission, today China is contributing close to 25 to 30%, US about 16%, Europe 14%. So if you look at Europe, US, and China, you're talking about 2/3 of the problem. So yes, of course, India will have to take responsibility for what is happening. As I said, we are contributing 6%. We must take leadership to ensure that our emissions are reduced. But so will developed world have to take responsibility, and everyone else. So yes, I agree with you that India will have to take responsibility, but without a global collective action, we are not going anywhere. Unfortunately, we are talking a lot. None of us are doing anything.
There is no doubt that there is responsibility to fight climate change at the governmental level, but I wonder if there is something that can be done at the people level as well. Should people be doing something as well, do you think, at an individual level to fight climate change?
I think we are putting too much onus on government. I think private sector has a huge role to play. The number of companies and the economic power of those companies. Today, the top 100 companies of the world emit close to 30 to 40% of global emissions. In India, the biggest companies are also the biggest polluters. So yes, governments will have to put framework in picture, provide incentives and disincentives so that emissions are reduced, but companies also will have to take responsibility. It is no more about companies only following government policies. And so it is about individual responsibility. We also must take our own in whatever way we can, so that our carbon footprint is low as well.
Right, we'll have to leave it there for the time being, but thank you so much for joining us on this very important subject. Chandra Bhushan, CEO of iForest. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you.